What is up, everybody? Hopefully, you guys had a good weekend. Looking forward to a really good Monday. It's game day for my Steelers. Excited about that. It's going to be a weird time. Kickoff's at 5, but at least I'll actually get some sleep tonight. Be a good day. Hopefully, we can pull this off against Washington. Maybe a little bit of a trap game. Anyway, just keep rolling with this stuff, guys. Like I said in that video, I want to make sure you guys get this, that this is material being covered. You actually need to be paying attention to this. I'm not going to go back and cover this again. Like, there's a reason these are going to be sitting on YouTube. Is there's going to be no excuse as to you can't give me any excuse and say that you weren't able to get caught up or anything. The stuff's out there. It'll be out there so you guys can watch it. But this is chapter 7, section 3, and we're going to start talking about this. Really focuses on that first packet you guys did, those structures and organelles that you really worked with. So technically, this should just be a review for you if you actually did what was asked of you and you guys worked through and looked at those videos. You looked up videos, you read stuff on the internet about these organelles. So let's start talking about it, and the first one we're going to talk about is the cytoplasm. Okay, so the cytoplasm, right now I'm in the way, move out of the way. So the cytoplasm is literally just this environment that's enclosed by the plasma membrane, and it's a semi-fluid material, all right? Pretty much what this is saying, this is the fluid that everything is sitting in. That's what the cytoplasm is. Like, we push so much about staying hydrated and drinking fluids and keeping water. And if you do cross country or track, you hear Mr. Dale Stewart constantly talk about you need to hydrate. You need to hydrate. How many bottles of water do you drink today? 9. That's great, but you didn't drink 10. You still need to hydrate. And he is all on hydration. And this is as to why is that hydration, that water is what will keep the cytoplasm in the conditions where it's supposed to be. And this is key throughout the whole body because that cytoplasm is what allows things to move throughout the cell. So within this, in prokaryotic cells, remember as prokaryotic cells, those are like bacteria, okay? All their chemical processes take place directly in the cytoplasm. Now, cells like we have that are eukaryotic, those take place within our organelles that are placed inside the cytoplasm. So kind of like if you guys have ever seen, I think it's called like a fruit jello thing. It's where they take like jello and they've put fruit inside of it. That's kind of the idea of what you're looking at here. So the jello is a cytoplasm and the fruit are the organelles. That's what it's like for eukaryotic cells that we have. Now, whenever you get into this, you have the cytoplasm as the fluid that everything can move around in and do its stuff. But we also have cytoskeleton. My computer will work. Here we go. The cytoskeleton is exactly what you think it is. The key word in that is the skeleton. What do you have your skeleton for? It's for that structure. It's for the support. And that's what you see here is all the cytoskeleton is, that supporting network of long, thin protein fibers that form the framework for the cell and provide an anchor for organelles. So this is kind of like they got it kind of blown up here. So here's this plasma membrane you see here. And within these, you can see the whole cytoskeleton throughout these microfilaments, the microtubules. You can even see right here this mitochondria. Yeah, I think that's a mitochondria. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's mitochondria stuck right there. So you can see like it anchors those organelles in there. So like they have anchor points, which is very important. So within these microtubules, which you can see rolling through here too, as part of that cytoskeleton, are long hollow protein cylinders, and that form a rigid skeleton for the cell, and it is very useful in moving substances within the cell. Then we have those microfilaments that are the thin proteins. That's the yellow stuff here. And those are protein threads, and they will give the cell shape and enable the part of the entire cell move. Okay, so those two work together to give us that structure and support within our cells that we'll be looking for. Here we go. All right, so let's start talking more in these organelles. So like the big mad daddy important one of it is the nucleus, which you see the nucleus here. So like how I keep describing the nucleus is it's the ball inside of the ball. So like the cell, if you imagine it as a ball, there's a ball in there inside that ball, and it's a smaller ball, but that ball is super important. And the reason it is the nucleus contains the cell's DNA. This information is used to make everything within the cell. Everything is made from this, and it determines everything about us. It determines cell growth, function, reproduction. It determines everything. Why are you the height that you are? Why is it that you can eat a whole pizza but nothing happens to you? You lose 2 pounds. Why I look at a picture of a pizza and I just gained a pound. Like, why does that take place? It's all within the DNA. It's all within that genetic material. Now, this is the thing, and this is the key where I'm saying it's extra protected. It's surrounded by a double membrane. That is the nuclear envelope. Okay, the way to think of that is the nuclear envelope. Envelopes, what do we use envelopes for? Is to ship things, and that envelope is there to protect it. All right. If I'm sending a check through the mail, I put it in the envelope to make sure it gets there. I just don't write a check out and go up to the counter at the post office and say, hey, I need to send this to blah blah blah. That's not going to end well. People are going to see it's a check, and then somebody's more than likely going to take it. So the envelope, that nuclear envelope, is there. That's another double membrane that's there to protect the DNA. You have to protect the DNA. It's so important. Then from there we have the ribosomes. These are the organelles that manufacture proteins. Proteins are important for the functions that take place within the cell, and these are not membrane bound like other organelles. All right, they are produced inside the nucleus in that nucleolus. So this little blue ball that's inside the small purple ball, that is the nucleolus, and that's where we get our ribosomes produced from. And they literally go through, and their job is to just manufacture proteins. That's all they do. They read genetic material, they produce proteins. That's what they do. They are seen throughout the cell, like you can see here. I know it's a little hard to see, but these little dots all the way around, all of that are ribosomes. Then we have the endoplasmic reticulum. The endoplasmic reticulum, we call it the ER for short. We do not mean ER as in emergency room. The endoplasmic reticulum, there's two different types. You have rough and smooth. So down here is the difference in the two. Now, the big main difference in the two, the rough ER, if you see here, it's kind of like, looks like it has chicken pox. What that is, it actually has ribosomes bonded right into it. That's why it's called rough ER. The way I look at it is like there's stuff bonded to it, it's rough. Smooth ER does not. The smooth endoplasmic reticulum does not have ribosomes bonded to it, so it's very smooth. And all this is a membrane system of folded sacs and interconnected channels that serve as the site for protein and lipid synthesis. So this is where proteins and lipids are really being pushed out for the cell for it to carry on the processes that it is created and designed to do. So then you get in here, going from the endoplasmic reticulum. We go from there, we go into the Golgi apparatus. All right, the Golgi apparatus, all this is a flattened stack. The Golgi apparatus is a flattened stack of membranes that modifies, sorts, and packages proteins. So they modify, sort, and package the proteins. This is the one that's going to bring it in, and this is so important because they're the ones that's literally creating the folds and the bonding sites and everything, and getting the protein to take shape of how it's supposed to look, how it's supposed to be structured, so that in the result, in the end, that protein can carry out the process that it's actually created to do. The ribosomes, the endoplasmic reticulum, it will push out and produce the protein, but that protein doesn't automatically fold to what it needs to do. I'll go a little in depth here for a minute. It's more on a biochemistry level, but within this, what you'll see is this is so important because of how things interact within our cell and get the shapes that they're supposed to have is based off of hydrogen bonding. That's why I stress hydrogen bonding so much to you guys when we covered that. When we look at that, the hydrogen bonding is all about how the proteins and things will fold and shape, and they form different shapes. Now that means different things will react to it. We give it certain shapes so that it has one function, and that function is carried out very, very, very well. So these proteins are packed into little sacs called vesicles. So you can see the vesicles here. And they can fuse to the plasma membrane and release the protein to the environment. So if it needs to, what those can do is it can actually come over here to the plasma membrane, bond to it, and release it out. And that's a very complex process that I'm not going to talk to you about. Because that is, I'm not going to lie to you, that one is really, really in depth. It's a lot of biochemistry. But pretty much just to know, this is like the cell can create a protein and then it can push it out of the cell for it to go out within the body, for it to carry out any processes that it needs to carry out. Now, I want to show a difference here, okay? So look at this cell. This is an animal cell. And I want to show you the difference here because we're going to flip back and forth for a little bit. This is animal cell. As soon as we go to this green thing, this is a plant cell. Plant cells are very similar, but they're also different. We're going to show you in ways that they are. Like you can see in here, just looking around, they have a nucleus, they have a nucleolus, they have smooth and rough endoplasmic reticulums, they have a Golgi apparatus, but there's different organelles within plants than there is within us, and that is for a purpose. So the first one of these we're going to talk about is a vacuole. So a vacuole is a membrane-bound sac, and they literally just use it for temporary storage. So they can store food, they can store enzymes, they can store waste, pretty much anything that cell wants to store in there, they can store. It's kind of like, you know, that closet at your house that nobody ever gets into, but you just keep shoving stuff into it. Or like me and my wife, we're looking to buy a house here really soon. So we've like started stacking up and saving a lot of boxes, and where we're living at now, we got this one bedroom that we literally, it's just our catch-all, it's our storage room. And right now, if you walk in it, you'd be like, oh my gosh, Mr. Hall is a hoarder. No, all the boxes are empty. I know it looks like a mess, but we're just using that room as our vacuole, and we're just storing stuff right now. So that whenever it comes time, we can ship out. So within this, vacuoles are only found within plant cells. They are one organelle that is specific just to the plant cell. And that's one thing that makes it special and why you see the first switch that we got here going to this plant cell. Then we have the lysosome. I don't know why, but I think it's one of my favorite things to talk about, I guess because I took biochemistry and understand how it works now. So within this, the lysosome is just really, really cool to our body and our cells, because the lysosome's job is to just destroy. It's just to rip things apart. That's what the lysosome is, and that's what it does well. So lysosomes are these vesicles that contain substances that they digest excess or worn out organelles and food particles. Literally what this thing does, the lysosome sucks anything in it that's wore out and it just rips it to shreds until it gets broken down into a process, into those organic compounds that we can use again. So it can break it down into those amino acids that we can use it again. And another really cool thing about it, I think this is why I like it, is this is like your security guard. He's the guy that if a bacteria or virus invades the cell, he finds it, he sucks it in, and he just rips it to shreds. He's like, not today, Satan. Boom. Destroys that thing. All right. That's what the lysosome does. That's probably why it's my favorite. It's kind of like the linebacker of the cell. He just gets in there and just rips it up and destroys it and just wrecks it. So the lysosome, he's pretty cool. Anyway, then we have centrioles. Centrioles, these are very special, and these centrioles are organelles made of microtubules that function during cell division. They're located within the cytoplasm, but they just hang out literally until it's time for the cell to divide. Now, whenever the cell's dividing, they come in very, very important, and we'll discuss this later on in this whole process of mitosis, of meiosis, when you see that. We'll discuss and cover all that then. But pretty much, they just chill until the cell divides. Does nothing besides helping it divide. Then we have the mitochondria. Mitochondria, this is the one, a lot of people want to call it the powerhouse of the cell. And this is as to why. This is the organelle that will literally take our fuel particles, so like that glucose and stuff that I told you that we'll take in. And what it does is it will convert that fuel into energy. And we get to talk about this in the next chapter and really break it down and really go step after step after step with it. It just gets crazy. And just the process that happens within that mitochondria and how it creates our energy, but it does it at such an efficient rate. It is the powerhouse of the cell. It is so important to us. They have this outer membrane and a highly folded inner membrane that produces surface area for breaking the bonds in those sugar molecules. It's literally structured and meant for sugar molecules to come in, to take a hold of it, break the bonds, get the energy from it, and we're like, boom, we got ATP. Flipping back to the plant cell. This is for the plant cell, not for the animal cell. We don't have this, okay? I'm doing that in a general statement. So plant cells and other eukaryotic cells, they contain something called chloroplast. The chloroplast is what captures light and converts it into chemical energy in that process that you all know as photosynthesis. This is the organelle that allows the plant to make its own energy. We don't have chloroplast, which is why we have to eat things. But the plants, they have the chloroplast. They take light from the sun and they capture that and convert it into chemical energy so that they have energy. Now within these chloroplasts, they're composed of little teeny tiny discs that are just stacked on top of each other. That's called thylakoids. And they contain that light capturing pigment of chlorophyll, which is why they show the green here. You'll learn about that in the next chapter as well. And the really cool thing you'll learn about is pretty much what the chloroplast and the mitochondria do are reverse reactions of each other. It's a really, really cool process. And that's one thing I really like to push whenever I talk about chapter 8 and things that are going on and taking place. So then within this, plant cells have what is called a cell wall. Okay, here's the big thing. They still have the plasma membrane. It's still there. The plasma membrane is there. But the cell wall that's thick, rigid, made of mesh fibers, surrounds that plasma membrane. And this is the thing that gives plants such structure. This is literally what we're looking at. So you can see here the cell wall, and what they have is cellulose. Okay, it ends in OSE, which means sugar. So you see these little pockets here? That cellulose is down in those pockets of that cell wall. How many of you go to the store and to check for if a fruit is ripe or if a vegetable is ripe? Now, there's some of them we do this with. You grab a hold of it and you squeeze it, okay? If you grab a hold of it and you squeeze it, literally what you're feeling for is this cell wall and the cellulose. Whenever you're squeezing it like this, what you're doing to it, when you squeeze it, you're feeling, if it's hard, that means this cellulose has not broke down. That fruit is not what we would describe, or vegetable is not what we describe as ripe. But as you squeeze it, if it gives and you're like, oh yeah, this is ripe. We need this one. This one's perfect. We're going to eat this today. That give that you're feeling is because that cellulose has now broken down. And the cells wall and the plants do this on purpose for it to be able to give out the seeds and stuff like that. But it breaks that cellulose breaks down, and that's what give when you're feeling for that ripeness and you squeeze things. That's what you're feeling for and what you get. Now, the cell wall is there for a purpose and a reason. It's not just there to let you know, like, hey, I need to let people know when I'm ripe and they can eat me. That's not what the main reason it's there for. When you're looking at this, first main reason it's there is protect the cell and to give it structure. Think about plants, think about trees, think about all those that grow. If they're a small little teeny tiny plant, it's not really important. If you've ever grown anything, you watch. Everything starts small and it's green, but there comes a point as the plant keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, the stem keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger, and it gets more rigid and more rigid and more rigid. It's there to give structure and to give the cell support. The structure comes from how strong that cell wall is, that it can stack on top of each other and hold that foundation. That's why we have trees as huge as they are and they're not falling down on us, because that cell wall is in there. Now, also in there, it's there to protect the cell. The plasma membrane's there to protect the cell, but the cell wall does it in an incredible um, storage and way of defense. So they're also made from carbohydrate called that cellulose, which I covered that with you. And when that sugar breaks down, you feel the gift. So next time you're at the supermarket with mom and you're buying some fruits and your mom's over there and she's like, no, that's not right. Oh, yeah, that's a good one. You can look at your mom and go, hey, do you actually know what's happening here, mom? And you can teach her about cell wall and cellulose. All right, so on this next one, we're going to talk about two parts of a cell, of the structure of cilia and flagella. All right, so in this case, we're looking at a bacteria cell. This is what a prokaryotic or a bacteria cell looks like. All right, so you can see a lot of differences here. The DNA is just hanging out. It's just there. The ribosomes are just hanging out. And then you got the cytoplasm just sitting there. And pretty much what you're looking at. You got the plasma membrane, you got a cell wall, and you got the capsule that just encloses. That's it. Now, around it are two things we're going to talk about. Excuse me. I need to drink coffee. First one of these is the cilia. The cilia are these short projections that look like hair coming off of it. Like you see all around here, these little short little, you think they are hairs, but they're not. What these are cilia, and what they do, it's kind of like if you've ever watched the movie when they're on an old ship where a bunch of guys have to row oars, and there's a guy that hits a drum, and he's doing it to keep a beat, to keep a pattern, so that the members that are rowing the oars know when to row so that everything goes in tandem like a rowboat and it keeps it going in the direction it's supposed to go. That's what that cilia are like. Now, the other one are flagella. These are longer and less numerous than cilia, and they move with a whip-like motion. So they like whip around. It's kind of like the tail on a fish that's whipping through to try and push it through. That's what it does. Both of them are made of microtubules. Now, I will say this. To my knowledge, I can't think of anything off the top of my head. I can be wrong. Don't come at me if I'm wrong. But I can't think of any cells within the human body that have cilia in it. There probably is one, but I don't know of it. If you find it, send it to me on live grades in a very nice way. Don't be a jerk about it, okay? Please and thank you. But the second one are the flagella. There is a cell that I know of within the human body that has flagella, and that's only for the male. That is found within the sperm cell. This is how the sperm moves through and finds its way to a female's egg to make a baby. This is what will take place, is that flagella there is what whips and it pushes the sperm up the canal until it finds the egg cell that it's looking for. Oh, I skipped one, sorry. All right, so comparing cells, features plant cells have that animal cells generally do not. Like I said, I was making a general statement with those. First one are chloroplasts and chlorophyll. Second one is vacuoles, and the third are cell walls. That's very, very important for you to know because whenever you end up taking the quiz or the test on this, that is one thing I love to go for. What's the difference in the three? What is the difference? Organelles at work, though. Within this, you got to have an understanding of different organelles and how they allow for an understanding of that cellular process. Every one of them have a special property and purpose and reason they're within the cell and what they're going forth and doing. And it's so important that you understand what each one of those are doing. Within that is also in that protein synthesis. That protein synthesis is this huge process, but it's so important to us and to our cellular life and to sustaining our lives as the whole organism. What you'll see in this is this protein synthesis begins in the nucleus with information contained in DNA. RNA and ribosomes leave the nucleus, produce a protein on the endoplasmic reticulum. The proteins are produced in the ER and then it's sent to the Golgi apparatus for packaging. Then packaged proteins are delivered to other organelles where they serve a variety of functions. So there's this big, huge, long process you need to make sure that you get and that you understand. Because if you don't, that's not good. We want you to get it. We want you to understand it because of how important this process is. The protein synthesis process is crucially important. Please get it. Okay? And that, ladies and gentlemen, finishes chapter 7, section 3. Which leaves me to, if you have any questions, holler at me on live grades. Try to help you as much as I can. Hopefully you're finding these videos very helpful and they're working good for you. If you're having questions, then you need to holler at me. You need to send me a message. I will say this because I've had several of you that have responded to that message I sent. Yes, this material has been taught. Yes, this material matters. Yes, you're going to have to know this. I'm not going back to do this. If you thought that because we're not at school right now meant you weren't doing anything, that's totally a misconception. I don't know where you got that idea from, but yes, this is stuff you should be working on, and I'll send you this PowerPoint so you got the notes, but you should watch the videos, work through the videos with me, take your notes, make your highlights, do the stuff you got to do. Besides that, love you guys. Can't wait till I see you back in person, and go Steelers.